like that without chewing, it'll get stuck in your throat.
Shut up! Don't underestimate.
Hey guys, how's it going? I haven't reviewed Delicious in Dungeon before, but I loved this show so much that I watched it twice back to back. And I really want to talk about two of my favorite monster girls. Both Izutsumi and Falin are some of my favorite characters from Delicious in Dungeon, especially Izutsumi. I even made her my Roblox avatar and drew her a ton. But I also like that both are sort of two sides of the same coin, living their current state as part monster against their will. However, I think both girls experienced a rough past, coped with it in different ways, and then learned to be kind because of it. There's a lesson in this story about how behind every face, even one as happy or innocent as young Falin's, there can be some suffering you wouldn't even know about. So in that sense, it's good to be kind to everyone regardless. But let me explain, starting with Izutsumi.
Can't believe how slow you guys are.
Izutsumi is one of my new favorite characters, period. Ever since I saw her, I fell in love with her attitude and how she interacted with the others in Laios' party. She was at first self-serving and honestly, like Laios, ignorant in social cues, or at least in her case, table manners.
She has no table manners.
She wanted to do things her own way, only sticking around with the party with the hope that they could free her from her feline side. And this is random, but I actually really like how she's a teenager and a cat girl. The designers also leaned more into her cat side, wherein she doesn't just have ears and a tail, but she prefers to eat meat, picks one member of the party to really bond with, and is quite independent. Still, she spends most of her time sticking her tongue out or insulting others in the party, obviously being cold and aloof towards them. It isn't until that they actually have to fight monsters together that she actually depends on them and trusts them. When she gets hurt and they heal her, or when she needs help slaying a giant snowman.
Hey, how do I kill this big snowman?
She can count on her party to help her. Of course, she doesn't like depending on others, but she has a goal set, and she learns that to get the things she wants, she'll have to endure things she doesn't want, and along the way, she might get some tasty treats. With this, she tolerates the group more and actually enjoys hanging out with them. As she gets good meals out of it, though she is quite picky. And also, I gotta say, I think it was an amazing idea to have a picky eater in a cooking anime. Like, all of the other characters who eat monsters, apart from Laios and Senshi, are like, ew, I don't wanna. And then they eat it and they're like, whoa, this is the best thing ever. Now, granted, Izutsumi had the same reaction when she first ate Senshi's cooking.
This kid.
But even later in the episode, she tosses out the food she doesn't like. I think it's a good challenge to the status quo of these characters. Someone who's self-serving has to learn to compromise for others because they would compromise for her. And by that, I mean they would cook meals for her and take her to the Mad Mage, and even figure out why the monster part of Izutsumi might be harder to separate than Falin's. Nevertheless, this mutual compromise is what makes Izutsumi call these people her friends. I think that's enough background for me to get into the kindness part. I don't know, I've never made a video on Dunmeshi before, but let me know your thoughts on Izutsumi. But anyway, let me talk about her learning to care for others and step out of her comfort zone to help them, specifically Marcille, but you can see her do it with others too. As the once aloof cat, she becomes very different once the gang gets taken by ghosts to the Golden Kingdom residence.
I'll just wait for them to get back. Can't leave Izutsumi alone anyway.
She acts like a house cat, and it's actually one of my favorite episodes in the show. She's so cute in this, and I love how she slaps away Laios' hand. Aww. But here, you can see her act completely different than usual, as she's always seeking physical contact with Marcille, who frankly has no idea how to handle her. You often see her smiling too, which is pretty nice. But the main thing to focus on is how vulnerable she is here. While she's not quite being herself, this whole sequence allowed the party to see a side of her that is comfortable with all of them, dropping her cool facade. So once they leave, it all comes flooding back to Izutsumi, how cat-like she was, and honestly, it's hilarious.
You okay?
Just rest here for a bit. We're gonna take a look around.
Next, we get to see Senshi act vulnerable before the group, where he relives his trauma when he hears a griffin is nearby. Fleeing for his life, he gets picked up and captured. Laios also looks horrified at the thought that this was their last time seeing him. However, Izutsumi asks what Senshi's deal is and who is he.
So, Who exactly is that old dwarf guy anyway? And why is he so obsessed with making food? Huh? How do you not know the answer to that? You all act like you're old buddies!
Now you could take this as a way that the story's hinting we're gonna get his backstory soon, or it's a sign that Izutsumi's becoming more curious about the group, realizing that they know her soft side, so why not learn about theirs? I think that's more interesting. Speaking of interesting, after they save Senshi and he reintroduces himself, before he eats the supposed griffin meat, he looks shaken. And who's the first person to try and console him? Your favorite cat.
I guess it's exactly what I feared it was.
Senshi,
It's fine. At least I know now.
Of course it was shut down, but it was a sign that she's actually caring for these people's well-being. Unlike before where she let Laios deal with the wolves while she tried to find food. Now after they get changeling spores on them, she does get a bit feisty, but everyone other than Laios and Senshi weren't having a good time. Once they wash off those spores, they reach a trolley which autonomously takes them to a deeper part of the dungeon. While they wait for the ride, and for food, Izutsumi sleeps on Marcille's lap. Another sign that she's become comfortable around them all, and Laios tells his backstory, as well as Falin's. At hearing about Falin's life, which will be the second part of this video, Marcille cries. It makes Izutsumi get up because it was uncomfortable to have those tears fall on her. Now, Izutsumi could have just left Marcille alone to cry to herself, but she finally completes her arc of being nice and kind to her party by offering a hand to Marcille. You can clearly tell she's not used to it, but as Senshi explained to her when they first met.
and this is the easiest way for me to do it!
I'm sure it is. Being forced to hold something in a way you're not used to must be vexing.
Honestly, a hug from Izutsumi would heal me. Like, imagine hugging a cat. That's gotta be like top 5 feelings. Or at least top 6. But for Izutsumi's top 3. Okay, anyway, I just think this moment was really significant, at least in my heart. I like the idea of someone who threatened to kill these people when they met, offer a hand of comfort. It shows that this group of ragtag adventurers are the best people for each other, and that's a lesson in and of itself. Izutsumi didn't have to conform to their rules. Well, not in a way like she had to do when in the East. There, she was snarky, would stick her tongue out at people, and overall did things only for herself. And you can tell she expected to do the same thing with Laios' party before they got used to each other. In that sense, with how desperate she is to get rid of her curse, you can assume she's never really fit in anywhere. Being part monster, she was probably really insecure until she honed her skills as a shinobi, but even then, she went under a different name, likely not accepting that Izutsumi could be someone more than a monster. It's sort of heartbreaking, but it could explain why she was so aloof. She was different. Yes, everyone in Laios' party are different races, but she was on a different level. She could barely consider herself human, and hearing that they weren't even sure they could fix her, her heart shattered.
Huh?
She stuck around regardless though, because there were some of the few people in her life to take her in that wouldn't turn her into a soldier. Mind you, when Maizuru was allowed to cook, she told the other shinobi to find ingredients, and Izutsumi was eager to help, but she couldn't, stating that she doesn't want her putting weird stuff in the food.
And Asabi, your job is to protect our lord from harm. Can't have you adding strange things to the food.
Clearly this is about her being a picky eater, but still, it shows that Izutsumi wasn't really allowed to be herself, if she even knew who she was at that point. Additionally, before she joined Laios' party, Shuro's gang wonders where Izutsumi went, and Shuro says she can catch up if she wants to. I don't know, to me, this just seems like they had her there as an obligation, and none of them actually cared for her, maybe except for Tade. Now, when she joined Laios' party, as I've explained, she was snappy, rude, and aloof, but honestly, this might have been because she wanted to feel a small power trip for once. She had been taking orders for all I know, so it was probably new to make others do as she says. And you can tell she's new to it because Senshi manages to tackle her even as she's holding Marcille hostage. And honestly, the others didn't look too scared of her. But I think her finally hugging someone, even letting Marcille lay on her for a change, is a sign that she has people she sees as equal, who won't make her conform. She had to compromise, yes. She can no longer depend only on herself, and she has to eat some food she might not like. But is that really so bad if it means you'll have people care for you? That's just my take though. I think it's wonderful that she has friends now, and I can't wait to see how they all interact in the next season. I hope she has more time to smile, and honestly, I would devote everything to making sure Izutsumi is happy and comfortable, but that's just me. Number 1 Izutsumi fan right here. Well, number 1 new Izutsumi fan. And also, she really makes me want to get a cat. But anyway, let's talk about another monster girl dealing with being comfortable with herself, Falin. Now before I get started in the Falin section, I want to preface this and tell you the 2 shots in the show that really inspired me to write this video. As I mentioned earlier, I've seen Dunmeshi twice by now. Once because I was curious, and then the second time because I literally needed to rewatch it right after. But because of that, I felt like I needed to make a video on this because this show is really great. However, what inspired this topic were these scenes where Izutsumi hugs Marcille, and this flashback where Falin eats alone for the first time. Even on my first watch, I noted how the art depicted her sadness. They didn't need to show tears in her eyes, but instead they showed this tolerance Falin has for being alone for the first time. It's winter, the walls are bland, there's no one else in the other seats, and even Laios' old seat is still pulled out. Essentially, this depression isn't a deep sadness, but rather emptiness. I think that's what's heartbreaking about this. This child felt empty from so early on. Falin was always an odd girl, even ostracized and criticized by most around her. We see this through her classmates, as one asks if Marcille got dirt on her because she bumped into Falin. We also see this somewhat through her family and those in her village, when they find out she can communicate with ghosts. This exclusion led to her finding solace in places only she could reach, because there, no one could judge her. She could escape and write letters to her brother, the one person who cared about her unconditionally. It wasn't necessarily a happy place in my opinion, but it was a place where she likely didn't feel bad about herself. It's why she was so happy to be able to call Marcille her friend. Even if she's weird, like everyone else, she just wants to be happy and smile.
Oh, I haven't introduced myself. My name's Falin. Would you mind telling me your name?
My name is Marcille. Falin, what do you say to becoming friends?
It's why she was so glad Marcille was curious about her, and she wanted to give her many trinkets because of it. She finally had someone who wasn't weirded out by her, apart from her brother. By the finale of the show, Senshi asks Laios why he and Falin even became adventurers, and we learn about her sad childhood. We find out that she spent a lot of her younger years shunned by her family, all because she had a special talent for talking to spirits. Only her brother actually encouraged it and treated her like a normal person. You can see how hard she smiles when he talks about all the amazing things she can do with her gifts. So when he finally returns to her after years of leaving her, you can bet she left her life to join him. And speaking of those years alone, while the Mage Academy did let her hone her craft and even meet Marcille, she probably still felt that emptiness that I mentioned previously. While Marcille didn't outright shun Falin, you can assume by the way she cries at the end of the show that she was still wondering what was the deal with Falin, and likely didn't accept her unconditionally because of it. Of course, being curious doesn't mean you can't care for someone, but the sibling bond was strongest for Falin. I mean, even when they brought her back to life, she left Marcille in the night to go talk to her brother.
I'm gonna go say goodnight to my brother.
But doesn't this make sense why Falin would die for him? He's one of the few people who cared for her and understood her, and she died for all of her squad mates too, even teleporting them out of the dungeon. By that point, she actually had a group of people who didn't judge her so harshly, so she had this part of her that probably didn't want to see them get hurt, which was why she sent them out of the dungeon away from the dragon, even at the expense of her own body and life. She also almost found love with Shuro in this party, though I bet she told him she wanted to think about it because she's just a girl who likes bugs. But, I mean, not to get off topic, but can we talk about how cool Laios is? I mean, immediately after getting sent out of the dungeon, he was willing to turn around and go right back for Falin, even alone. He speedran his old path and even got his leg ripped off in hopes of saving her, and he cut pretty much every digestive organ in that dragon to find her. I think it's really cool the bond they have, and even after seeing her as a monster, he doesn't immediately fear her or want to put her down, but he actually admires how many cool features she has.
But don't you think you got a little too greedy? You have wings, feathers, and scales now.
Whoa, hey!
But both of these siblings are like dogs. It's kind of funny. But anyways, when Falin became a monster, you could still see her curiosity towards the world and her cry for help that she kept hidden most of her life. In terms of curiosity, we see this when she's about to eat the walking mushroom, but the Mad Mage slaps it out of her hand. She's still thinking of Laios probably, wondering what the monsters taste like that he's been eating all this time. And this reminds me of the one scene when Laios' party was traveling deeper into the dungeon and they came across a staircase with a blood trail. The first thing Laios worried about was Falin being cramped in there. I like that these two still think of each other even after all of this. Anyway, as for that cry for help, you can clearly hear it when the parties fight Falin. Laios readies an attack, but he hears her call out for him, which makes him drop everything.
Help me, brother.
It's a natural instinct for him as her older brother to be there for her, especially since he knows more about her pain than anyone else. I just think it's sad that she had to end up this way, though she isn't in complete despair at her new state. This is likely because, as I've mentioned before, she had to get used to being different than others in her childhood, and she built this tolerance for being alone back then. It all connects, which is why I love the character work in this show. This does make me wonder though, how does it affect someone who was shunned by society because she was thought to be a monster to possibly never be able to be a part of society again because she is a monster? Would she only be able to reside in the dungeon for the rest of her life? Will the strategy of eating all of her lower half even work? Can Falin smile once again, play with dogs, eat monsters, and have her friends and family with her? I'd like to find out, but once again, I'll have to wait until the next season, or possibly pick up the manga. But we'll see. I'm a big fan of the series right now, and I wish I'd written this video a little bit sooner while it was still hot, but hopefully some Dunmeshi fans will watch this. Anyways, to explain how kindness fits in for Falin, essentially I interpreted it as her doing these heroic acts and giving trinkets to Marcille despite all the pain she goes through. It's not much, but perhaps she feels it's the least she can do for these people who care enough about her to talk to her. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. So I think a final message would be that this show is not necessarily about conforming to everyone else to fit in, but rather being your most authentic self so people learn to like the real you. That way you'll never have to worry about your friends pretending to like you. If that makes sense, let me know, but I hope you can take something out of this video, no matter what circumstances you have. I think it's good to know that there's at least one person on this planet who's interested in the real you. Someone you don't have to turn on your social battery for. Someone you can be your true self around, and hey, if you don't like your true self, maybe they can help you work on it. And also, I think it's a good message to be kind to as many people as you can. I think a lot of people could also benefit from having a party they can call their own. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I know it's not a Fate video or Spider-Verse video, but hopefully you can find time in your day to watch this. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and comment what else you want to see, as well as if you want me to review Delicious in Dungeon. Remember to eat your veggies, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Damn, baby, come jump off the roof with me, live up your youth with me before they shooting me. With all they cameras and bullets, I swear I'm the man up in front with the hooligans. Yeah, I'm up with stand up